This is video 3 in the series of the End Area Volume Tool Rock Excavation exercise. We are in step 4. This is the Superelevation section. We've just finished placing corridor and template drops. Now we're going to go create a brand new file as in step 14. This is going to go from step 14 to step 23. It'll cover steps 14 through 23. Step 14 says create a new 2D Power GEOPAK file and name it the job number underscore superelevation. So to do this, again, we go to the file pull down, choose the new option. We will select the no wizard and hit the OK button. It defaults with a 2D file. Superelevation can be created in a 2D file, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to rename it J5U0441G underscore superelevation .dgn. And we'll swipe through that information, right click and copy it. And we'll swipe through the file name, right click and paste the name above that. And again, if you want to give it a description, you can. I will simply call this one Superelevation in my description. Once that's filled out, we can hit the OK button. Always making sure though that you do look at the data folder and make sure it's properly filled out, and ours is. So I'll hit OK. It'll bring in the check-in dialog. We would like to check in the previous file we were in. And this will open up a brand new clean file with the MoDOT standard settings. Step 15 calls for us to reference in our civil geometry file. To do that, we'll go to the reference dialog box, open it up, go to the tools pull down within that reference dialog box, and choose the attach button, or the attach option. Again, we want to make sure it's navigating to the correct location, so you can always check by the pull down where it says folders, and we are going to the correct area. And again, the civil geometry is what I'm looking for, so I will add it and then hit the OK button, which will bring up the reference attachment settings. I'm going to go ahead and go with the OK on this. Everything is good as far as the default settings in here. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll do a fit view so I can see my horizontal alignment in the background. I'll go ahead and close the reference dialog box. I'm done with it. And that's basically all you need to create a superelevation. Okay, so that clears out step number 15. So 14 and 15 have been completed. Now on step 16, it tells us to create a superelevation section using the Route 179 alignment, naming it Route 179. And we're going to create a section from 42 plus 00 to 62 plus 00. Okay, so what we're going to do is just kind of zoom in a little bit, hit the F4 key to clear out any tools that we have open. We'll go to our task tools. Again, we'll go back down to our corridor modeling tool group, and in there you'll see some mesh looking kind of icons through here, and these are the superelevation tools, and we want to create a superelevation section, so we're going to create or click on that very first icon, third row down. It's asking us to name that section, and then in our instructions in step number 16 it says we're going to name it Route 179. So RTE 179 in the input field on our heads up prompt. Go ahead and accept that. It's going to ask us to locate the alignment. So we'll just hover over the alignment and we'll get our heads-up displays, and you can see with all the information in there, we have a complex element of Route 179. It shows us our feature definition that's on that alignment, which is the MoDOT baseline proposed, and it also shows us the active profile, which is the Route 179 PR. So we'll go ahead and select that, and once we do, the heads-up display is prompting us for a start station. In the instructions in step 16, it says we're going to start at 42 plus 00, so you can simply just key that in, 42 plus 00, hit the enter key, and that will lock the information into that data field. All you need to do now is left click or accept it in a blank area. And you can see it's going to build a section off of where we started. It's now looking for an end station. In the instructions, we're told to go to 62 plus 00, so we'll key that in, 62 plus 00. We'll hit the enter key on the keyboard, and that will lock in that value. And it's important that you hit the enter key before you move your mouse, because that will move and change the value in the end station. But once it's locked in, all we need to do is accept it. So we'll left click in a blank area. Now there's a minimum tangent length that comes up, and what this deals with is if we have several curves or more than one curve on an alignment and we have different design speeds, we would want to put a minimum tangent length in between those curves, so we'll create different sections for them. In this case, we don't have to worry about it. We're going to hit the 0. It has a note in step 16. And before the note, it shows some verbiage off on the right side of the icon that says select the created shape and change the end station to 150 plus 00. So what I'm going to do is end the tool by hitting F4, and I'm going to go into that shape and left click on it. When you do, you get all your Superelevation tools will pop up, and later on we're going to come back and do some more. But at this point, I want to change that end station from 62 plus 00 to 150 plus 00. And the easiest way to do it is just to select the text that's out there, and you'll get a heads-up display. Now I can simply key in 150 plus 00, hit the enter key, and you see that section extends all the way down to 150 now. Okay, so that's part of step 16. It also says if a section is created for the entire distance, the tool will create more than one section. You can delete all but one and dynamically stretch the section, or key in stations to make it one section, or create a shorter section and then expand it as shown above. So that's what we kind of did. Instead of just dynamically dragging it, we went ahead and keyed in a value that we wanted to use for the end station. But it's perfectly acceptable to go back and dynamically edit that. Looks like I got an extra shape here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that and change the start station to the beginning of the first one here. And that should be 42 plus 00. Okay, so now I have one section. And what this does is makes it very easy. If it's the same design speed throughout the project, it makes it very easy to go over into our corridors later on when we apply this Superelevation section to the corridors. It makes it easy to select the one shape rather than having to go through and pick how many shapes we end up with. Okay, step number 17. Create lanes. And there are two lanes for the 4-lane highways. So to do that, since we dropped the tool off, all you need to do is go over to the section, select it, get our heads-up display again, and this is the second icon, create Superelevation lanes. And there's a couple ways of doing it. We have a create Superelevation lane by road template, or the one that we're going to choose is create Superelevation lane. So I'm going to select that. It brings up the heads-up prompt, and it's asking us for a lane name. I'm going to do the north side first. It's in step 17 in your manual. So I'll type in north. I'll hit the enter key, and it is a primary, so we'll go ahead and accept that value. And the side of the center line is actually going to be on the left side, so we'll accept that. The offset from the baseline, the center line, is 0. We're going right up against the baseline, so we'll say 0 and accept that. But the width that we're wanting to use is 28 feet. And why we use 28 feet is because we chose a template, and in that template our lane widths are 28 feet to that outside point. So when we apply super elevation later, it's going to look for that point name. And if we fill out the same width that we use in the template, it finds that point name automatically. So 28, hit the enter key, and then the normal cross slope that we're going to use in this is a positive 2%. So I'll key in plus 2, hit the enter key, and then when I zoom in you can see now we have a shape that's formed. Okay, so it's the northbound lane on the left side of the baseline, and you can see by the stationing that it actually runs north to south. So it wants another lane name. We're going to do the second lane, the second side, and we're going to call this one south. It's a primary as well. The side of the center line is actually the right side, so using the down, up and down arrows on your keyboard, I'll select down and get the right option, or the correct option, and we'll left click to accept that. Again, the inside offset is 0. We don't have a median going through here, so we're going to just go ahead and left click to accept that. And the width is filled in by what we used on the other side, the north side. So we're going to go with that same 28 foot because we know from our template that both sides are 28 feet. And the normal cross slope on this side will be actually a negative 2%. And we'll input that, and you can see we now have shapes up and down. But in the curved areas you're not seeing any kind of coloring going on, so there's no real super elevation. It just has lanes out here for us. So it's wanting to place more lanes, and if we had more lanes we could keep going. We're finished, so all we need to do is right click, and that'll advance us to the next part of the tool, which is selecting a standards file. You can do this a couple different ways. You can select it by this button on the dialog, or you can hold the Alt down keys to actually get it to pop up. So if I hold Alt and hit the down arrow, it goes out to ProjectWise and looks for that file that we're needing to load here, and it's looking for an SCP file. We want to close it because we do not keep that in ProjectWise. It is actually out on the T drive. So once you hit cancel in ProjectWise, it will navigate to our T drive, and it shows us the 3 different options that we have out here. We have an English 2011 SCP, which follows AASHTO. We also have MoDOT Standards Plan Divided and Undivided, which have been updated to actually follow a little bit more of the AASHTO, but it accounts for the divided and undivided. I'm going to pick the English 2011 because I believe that's what it says in step number 18, and it does. So I'll select that, hit the open button. You can see it on my cursor now on the heads up prompt. It's there. All I have to do now is go ahead and accept that input, and it'll go to the next part of the tool. So that brings us to step number 19. Define the calculate super elevation dialog as follows. Well, we've already accepted the SCP file. Now what we want to do is fill in our E selection and our design speed. And to do that, the pull down works much better. You can just come over to the pull down on the dialog, and we are looking for an 8% at 50 miles per hour. So just use the scroll bar. 8% 50. All cases, design speeds filled in with the 50. It's a linear transition ID. The number of lanes in this case will be 1. And the facility we're going to use is undivided, since we have it right up against there. And there's also an option there to open the editor. And if you've taken the super elevation part from Road 1, we went through all that. So we're just going to let it go from here. So once all this is filled in the dialog, all you have to do is go to a blank area and start accepting the input. So I'll accept my 8% at 50 by left clicking, all cases for my L selection, my design speed of 50, I'll left click to accept that. Transition ID is linear, I'll accept that by left clicking. Number of lanes is 1, I'll accept that. And the facility is undivided, so we'll accept that. Do I want to open the editor? I will say no and go ahead and accept that. It processes. It's asking us to locate the corridor, which we don't need to do that, so we'll go ahead and right click and finish that part. And you can see when you get into a curved situation now, you're getting some coloring, and that represents our super elevation. If you click on the shape, you'll see they're stationing, and if I zoom out a little bit, you can see the negative 4% it's at this station. So our super elevation has been created. The next thing we want to do, since we finished that, is open the corridors file to apply it. So we created a brand new super elevation file. Now let's go back to the corridors file. So we'll do a file, open, corridors, from our data folder, our job, open. We'll check in what we did in the super elevation file. And the corridor should look familiar. The next thing we want to do in step 21 is reference in the super elevation file. So we'll go to our reference dialog. We'll open it up. We'll go to the tools pull down in the reference dialog and select the attach option. We'll go out and pick our J5U0441G underscore superelevation.dgn file. We'll add that in, hit OK, and we'll take the default settings and hit OK again. Now I like to move this dialog off to the side for a moment, because all I'm wanting to see, I want to see my shapes, and there's my section, but in a minute I'm going to want to turn this off. So step 21, referencing the super elevation we did. Step 22 is assign the super elevation to the Route 179 corridor using either the heads up prompts of the corridor or from the task corridor super elevation tool. So there's always a couple ways of doing things. I'm going to select from the corridor itself. So if you hover into the corridor, one of the handles, and select it, you'll get your heads up display. If you go out towards the corridor creation tool, which is the hammer, and select it, you'll get other options out here that pertains to the corridor. The last one in that group is assign super elevation to corridor. I'm going to select that one. The heads up display asks for a locate first super elevation section. So I'll go out and pick the section that's out there, and they're not talking about the shape that's in there, the yellow shapes. They're talking about that section that we created. It was the outline of the whole super elevation. So we'll select it, and then all you have to do, since we only have one section, is right click. If we had multiple sections out there and you didn't make them just one, this is where you'd go through and just keep selecting all the shapes that you have, or the sections. So we'll reset to complete. This will bring up the associate super elevation dialog. It's going to tell us we have our two lanes, north and south. It tells us our super elevation points, and it also shows us the pivot points. It tells us the start and stop station, and this is all filled out, and that's a good sign. That means our super elevation is going to take. So now all I have to do is go ahead and hit the OK button. It will process. The dialog will go away, and we've assigned the super elevation. So that was step number 22. So I'm done with that. I can right click or hit F4. I'll hit F4 to clear it out. I want to turn off all this that super elevation reference so I don't have to see it, and it's gone. I can close the reference dialog box. The next thing I want to do is verify my super elevation's working. So I know we had super elevation in this curve down here around 115 or 116 or so. So I'm going to go to the corridor, go to the handle, get my heads up display, go to my corridor view, select it, and then I'll get an open cross section model. So I'll select the cross section model. Heads up display or heads up prompt says select or open a view. I will go down to view 8 and opened it. Once it's open, I'll go ahead and left click inside that view, and that's going to go out and place my cross section. And these are dynamic cross sections that we have. We have our existing ground and our proposed ground with our templates. You can also see there's 2 magenta lines, and these are point controls that are created when you create super elevation. I don't see any super elevation going on. I do know it's working because I do see these 2 magenta points, but what I need to do is right click and hold for 1 second and get this menu to pop up. With the menu, you can say near the top, locate station via data point. So I can click it. The heads up prompt asks me to select a plan or profile view. I'm going to select this plan one in the background. And then where do I want to see what station? So I can come in here and key it in, or I can just left click and dynamically get to that area. And I'll left click. When I do, you'll see the cross section, a dynamic cross section at that station that I selected. And you can also see that we do have super elevation going on. So step 21, we verified the point controls through the dynamic cross sections, and again at the note at the bottom it has a note saying you should see 2 magenta points representing the super elevation, and those are point controls. So step 23 is complete, and that brings us to the conclusion of video number 3, super elevation.